didn't choose jail, I didn't jail myself. I'm not the one who says that we should have a military dictatorship in Uganda.
Why were you in prison? Were you trying to overthrow the government? What were you doing?
We were defending our clients, Besigye Rutare, in a military kangaroo court at Machinde. They wanted to stop me specifically from accessing my lawyer's seat, which we call the bar.
I know you're passionate about human rights, but was there a time in there when you started to have second thoughts about
church?
I think I remember in one of those low moments in prison, it shows you the problems that children can suffer simply because of their parents.
Wouldn't you say by the time you choose the kind of work you do, that's one of the things are most likely to happen?
No, and you've not been to prison before you start reasoning like that. Okay. We are here yet again for another episode of What Ought. More precisely, our second episode ever since we started this, series of conversations. Your host today is Aloikin Praise Opoloje, and with me in the room I have Lowell Muhwezi Joshua. Smile for the camera. Yeah. And we have a lawyer, prestigious lawyer. Are you prestigious though?
Not sure, but...
Okay, yeah, but he's a human rights defense lawyer. Yeah, he has awards. Yeah. That makes him prestigious, I think. Prestigious lawyer, Eron Kizza. And today our conversation is going to circle around political prisoners, abductions, and habeas corpus, especially after the whole Bob Njagi and Nicholas Oyo saga that happened. But before we get into that, we have a political prisoner here with us, Kizza Eron. We'd like for him to share with us in just a few minutes.
Political prisoner.
I think when you become a political prisoner, you always stay a political prisoner, a potential political prisoner. So, Eron, could you in 2 minutes share with us what your experience was like? Why were you in prison? Were you trying to overthrow the government? What were you doing?
No, not so much overthrowing the government as overthrowing tyranny and dictatorship and opposing it in a courtroom, in a court martial. It was 7th January 2025 this year. We were defending our clients, Besigye Rutare, in a military kangaroo court at Machinde, and they wanted to stop me specifically from accessing my lawyer's seat, which we call the bar. And I said, no, you're not going to stop me. I continued moving, and I argued with, we had an argument with the court order, and they decided to beat me up, convict and sentence me without any hearing, without any jurisdiction, because this was a kangaroo court. But they did it because they could. I was beaten, I was jailed, and I survived it all by the grace of God.
Yeah.
Yeah, so...
How long were you in?
3 months.
Oh, that's a long time.
3 months. I'm still out on bail.
Yes.
And my final conviction has not been lifted, but I'm very happy to have freedom. When you have been a prisoner, you know how sweet freedom tastes and how you should never take liberty for granted. I can't take liberty for granted.
Yeah.
I just have a follow-up question. That time they were beating you and thrown in jail. I know you're passionate about human rights, but was there a time in there when you started to have second thoughts about
the church?
This life I have dedicated, is it worth it?
Not the way I've put it, but I think I remember in one of those low moments in prison, I saw my children, what they were going through, and I knew that while it's fine for me, but I was wondering now, for the children, they have not discussed it with me. They have no input, yet they are also being subjected to this torment. And the ordeal, it shows you the problems that children can suffer simply because of their parents. The decisions made by their parents, or the decisions made to their parents. I didn't choose jail. I didn't jail myself. I'm not the one who says that we should have a military dictatorship in Uganda. I'm not the one who dictates military ethos in Uganda. I'm not the one who says that those guys should be ignorant of the constitution or should not care about it. But somehow the people I love had to pay the price.
Not to play the devil
in addition to myself.
But wouldn't you say by the time you choose the kind of work you're doing in the Ugandan context, that's one of the things, are most likely to happen? I'm not saying...
Let me first take you off the spotlight before this guy starts. When you've not been to prison before you start reasoning like that.
But it's not my opinion, though. I'm just...
that's what people say, like now. When they say...
That is... So when you interact with, for example, people who are bystanders, they use that justification for why they are not acting. They say... what if I venture in that and I lose my business? What if I venture in that and my kids suffer? I have one kid, I have not given birth. Depending on the level where they are, they always have that. So
who is not suffering? But am I the most suffering Ugandan?
Yeah, something like that. But me, I think this is it. First of all, the fact that we call it a choice, for me, is something wrong. I don't think it's a choice. There are usually two circumstances that a man is pressed, either against what they believe in, or just maybe their lives, food, or something of the sort. Like they have something to lose, you get? But it's always a place of being pressed. For example, we could say Eron, he has a good job, right? His family was eating a good meal, right? But he had certain beliefs like equality, that there's this man that was abducted in Kenya and they are bringing him here and keeping him in prison for all this time. And that violates the very things he stands for in the constitution. You understand? So it's not really a choice. Like you're pushed to that place. It's like giving a man no choice, like putting him in a rat race and there's only one exit. And you're saying he either stands here, but there's no food, he's hungry, he dies if he stands there. So he has to push through.
Are we still human beings if our neighbors are having problems? Our neighbors' houses are on fire and we don't take water, we don't raise alarm. There are things which look like choices, but which are really automatic responses of people of conscience, of people who are logical. Like it's only fair, it's only logical, and it is expected of a human being that if my neighbor is in trouble, I should at a minimum be concerned, be annoyed, and I should mobilize whatever resources I have, if it is the alarm, the presence, and what. Because
okay, I think my left has concluded with this guy issue. So me, I think we have all been to law school, at least, not yet lawyers. You're a lawyer. I want to know, when do lawyers decide that now it's time to throw our hands in the air, do some tai chi and kung fu in court, something like that? Like, where do you draw the line? Because there's always been this is how lawyers behave.
Doing tai chi in court?
Like, it could be verbal tai chi.
No.
Tai chi.
This is what I ask, because I know a child of one of your clients who... So it happens, the larger family is predominantly NRM, but this single guy is opposition and very convicted, and what he does, whether supporting opposition or aiding it, puts him under such risk. And I know that some of the other family members or their kids or even their mothers or aunties are always saying, why does he have to participate? Why does he have to put us in this condition? You get, so my question is also to, what do we tell our children who don't understand us, who think we voluntarily, or you voluntarily, put yourself or put them in a vulnerable position?
No, I already said that there are responses that are expected to dictatorship from people of conscience. The one who has a conscience that has not died should not be the one to explain.
So that
it is
was
the people who are
conscience.
acting illogically, who are too cold, who are detached, who are indifferent, that should explain to us why they are withdrawing, not the one who is acting the proper way. which is if there is rain, give someone an umbrella, which is if there is fire, put it out using the umbrella, which is if you see someone hungry, give them food. If you see someone who is detained, work for their liberty. That is, but to ask someone who is doing that to explain is not fair. But also the dictatorship is not brought by the victims of dictatorship. The culprits are elsewhere. Okay. Some people went to the bush, used violence to overthrow a ruling government, and after capturing power, they have never left using military means to keep power. And
who are these people?
Pretensions to the contrary. When you dare speak, like, part of my problem was quoting constitutional provisions.
Yes, and I remember that
really
saying them boldly.
What you have to do here.
Yes. So when did quoting the constitution, relying on the constitution, become so problematic, so criminal, that you have to be physically assaulted by people financed by taxpayers? These are things that just burst the bubble of we have elections, of we are in a democracy, or we are... when there is tension, the truth comes out. Mm-hmm. Yeah, the truth comes out.
Just for you, praise. So I get what you the two of you are saying, that the problem is not the person protesting. It is the person who is creating these conditions under which they can't do their job. Like Eron can't do what is legally supposed to do as someone who is representing a client or a victim. But I'm sure you've been in instances where you have a family member or a mother or an aunt who says, why do you go into those things? Those things are dangerous. The question is, do you think as an activist, for example, you have a duty for them to understand your cause and why you do what you do, or they ought to and realize themselves that the conditions they are, even themselves, are not the best, and you don't need to explain that to them?
Duty, I feel duty is such a heavy word. Like you're saying, there is a mandate, you must. I think it's, first of all, the right thing to do emotionally, because like Eron said, our actions affect these people at the end of the day, especially family. And they want to know, for example, why were you walking on the streets naked? You get? Because my mom is such, for example, a churchy woman, and she could not fathom her daughter walking naked on the streets. You get? And the whole church is like, hey, you raised your child badly. So she's affected by my actions. So I feel there's like a moral obligation to explain to those people that are directly affected by our actions. But also, there's a duty by virtue of being a citizen of Uganda, to educate yourself, but also others on matters of the constitution, on why they should speak up and stand up for themselves. However, I don't think it's like a place for them to tell you yes or no, like continue. It's not to beg for permission. It's more of a place to inform. Like, this is why I'm doing A, B, C, D. And sometimes they'll understand, some other times they'll not understand, but that doesn't mean that you stop doing what you believe in, you get? Because like Eron said, these are things of conscience. It takes time. There are some people whose consciences are seared. No matter what they see, they can never be moved. Unless it's them involved in that particular circumstance, they'll not be moved. You understand?
You said that there's a book called, I think, Pedagogy of the Oppressed, which is a common one. It talks about how victims themselves get to adopt a part and parcel of the problem itself.
Exactly.
Them resisting or not entertaining activists is because they have also been conquered by the dictator himself.
In several ways.
They also need liberating. They need to be consciousness. But I get you on that. So we are lucky to have Eron Kizza, counsel to...
I'm also lucky to have you.
Yes, Dr. Kizza Besigye of Bedulitare, and other people who are fighting for freedom and to change the political direction of this country. So earlier this week, even the past month, we had Kenyans who were abducted while in Uganda.
Yes.
Initially, we know that they had come to partake in Bobby Wine's campaigns, but also they said they were here for business.
Business tourism, something like that.
We went to court to, I think you call it habeas corpus, to have them produced. The court said they did not have them.
Right? Actually, the state
Okay, the
The
judge.
security agencies say they didn't have.
I like to say that government,
and
because these are people who represent the government.
And the judge,
Yes.
against the grain, seemed to believe, not only seemed actually agree.
In his own words, you cannot squeeze blood out of a rock.
Stone, yeah.
A
Yes.
stone.
And after a number of weeks, the president, the head of state, comes and says, we had these people
In a fridge.
And this is not a new thing. In the case of Sam Ogumia, you've also seen the state or the military or the police, which is in charge, saying we don't have him, we don't know where they are. I think at some point the police said the people who arrested were military people, were not the ones with them. What happens now? I don't know if you have the answers, but I'm asking as a lawyer, you always expect that the state will respect the judge when he says produce this person.
Yeah.
If the state says we don't, when we know that actually the state has this person, what happens?
And live beyond knowing. Oh yeah, okay. I think there is that first part when you know. But now this time when they swore an oath and lied, and the president himself confirms that these people were actually in our custody. Again, what happens in such a circumstance?
Before we even say what happens, but we have to sort of thank God that this was a blessing in disguise, that the people in problem this time were Kenyans, not Ugandans. Kenyans in the sense that they are privileged, that they have a constitution that they respect. They have a government which has all its problem, but that Kenyans can hold to account. That they do not have a military dictatorship in their land like we do here in Uganda. And that once their citizens are in trouble in a neighboring country, citizens of Kenya can pile pressure on the Kenyan government to hold the neighboring government accountable. A similar situation happened. What did the government of Uganda behave like? Irresponsible. Sam Ogumya was in the DRC for 8 years, and the government of Uganda did zero work
Nothing.
to get him. On the contrary, they were proud. Even the minister of is it internal? No, Mhozi's minister for what? This former CDF was
Security?
literally ridiculing Sam when we asked him where Sam is, ridiculing the 8 years he spent in detention. So, as far as the problems of Uganda are concerned, you are better off being a Kenyan or a British national or a US
Abducted in
national.
Uganda.
If you're abducted, you'd rather be a foreigner of a responsible government or a government where citizens can hold government to account than being a Ugandan, because that privilege is not available to Ugandans. We don't have that much pushback, that privilege over our government that foreign countries, citizens have over their governments, and therefore can trigger their governments to, at a diplomatic level, press the Ugandan government to release their citizens. If Bob and Nicholas were Ugandans, I can assure you, they would be still in that fridge that Museveni was talking about. But what does it say about the state? It shows you the crisis of legitimacy of the state. If state institutions have been so muzzled by the military dictatorship that they can't work, the media cannot be allowed unless it puts a foot to cover the president and parliament. The judiciary, there has been a colossal erosion of judicial independence. Now we have what I call judicial aristocracy, whereby you have only the worst people like Baguma, Sinjiza, whatnot in judicial offices. It's a pattern of promoting Museveni worshippers and incompetence to high offices in the judiciary. So basically the judiciary as an institution is deciding, ruling itself into irrelevance, because the procedure for habeas corpus was conceived, designed, and was being implemented to ensure that, to check illegal detentions, to check things like abductions by the state. But it assumes a competent judge who is interested in human rights, who is interested in personal liberty, and who is unafraid to make orders that annoy government. We hardly have any of those or any of such caliber enough. There are just a few who are remaining, and they are not in the courts where habeas corpuses are filed, you see the bail decisions relating to political prisoners and now environmental, literally everyone whom the government doesn't like.
Anything.
It's not just
because
like
it's
politics.
also political. Even the environmental questions here are political.
So even if it is a trader's thing, if government is annoyed with you, then you are not going to get bail. So judiciary is no longer the third arm of government. It is now an appendage of the executive, and therefore is becoming an extension of the military dictatorship. That's why increasingly the difference between the civilian judiciary and the kangaroo courts martial is becoming blurred. You can hardly tell them apart.
A few months ago, civilian courts, military courts, and now here are people in military courts in the hundreds, and they're still facing the same injustices.
Civilian courts,
If we had courts working in Uganda, we wouldn't have thousands of beneficiaries of the capacity guard decision rotting in prison. A good example are people who are arrested in Karangara with Bobby Wine.
Yes.
They are still rotting in prison. The people that Olivia left behind, and she has now
gone back to join.
Yeah. So it is very dangerous to have a judiciary that's not independent.
What was the alternative? The state has denied. We don't have Nicholas. We don't have this person. What was the alternative for the judge? What was the judge supposed to do in that circumstance?
He was supposed to order unconditional release because he had someone with whom those guys were arrested directly. They were not arrested like it's not a rumor. The person saw an affidavit before he also ran away to Kenya. They were 3 Kenyans. They arrested 2 of them, and one of them luckily escaped. We got an affidavit from him, put the affidavit before Justice General, but he didn't care. So he was supposed to order unconditional release of these people and also proceed with contempt of court of these heads of the military institutions.
So can that be done now?
He didn't take that route. It can be done in accordance as far as the law is, but there is a difference between what the law stipulates and what the individual justices are willing to do or have the balls to do. We are lacking character on the bench.
As people, the law school is channeling out. I don't know why you say the hard way.
Because I think ask the same question. Because I know Eron. I don't know if it's from him, but many people have wanted Eron to lead the bar, to lead the Uganda Law Society. And I'm asking myself, this job that many people want you to have, does it have the capacity to make reverse, any difference? Can we do anything?
Because one of the hardest contentions we had.
It's not a substitute, but it has a place.
To reorganize the judiciary.
You see, it's not fair to assume powers for law society they don't have, but it is important that whatever power they have, they exercise to their
best.
Optimally, to the maximum. So what the law society can do is to lead the voices of agitating for freedoms, of seeking bail, of strategic litigation. It shouldn't be taking a back seat, or it shouldn't be in the shadows, or it shouldn't be wishy-washy, it shouldn't be calm in the middle of the storm. But it is not a magic wand.
Me as a protest merchant.
Yes.
Me as a protest merchant. I feel like we are trying to use conventional means for unconventional times. You get? And like we have to look into the mirror and be honest with ourselves that it's not just enough for a time as this for us to say, this is the ULS, this is what the ULS is supposed to do, these are the powers of the ULS. We would assume by virtue of the position of the ULS, the power that they command, the support that they command, actually even they have the people power, because most times people assume that they have this power. So they are looking towards the ULS. What is the US president saying? What has the ULS done? When you were in prison, we were part of the people telling the ULS to organize a bunch of lawyers to take a petition to the courts, like to stage something, to show some symbolic support, some resistance, to say we are not going to appear in court for any of our cases for the next 2 weeks until this man is released. You get that kind of thing. Where is that resistance? Where are those unconventional means? Why are we so stuck to sticking to the rules of the book.
Okay, so I think there are areas of improvement, and indeed when it comes to peaceful protests, I think the Law Society can lead that effort, can support more of like the traders' strikes, the doctors' strikes, and so on and so forth. Yeah, as a society, we have a huge room for improvement in engaging the young people of this country, the young lawyers, even the old ones, in being more activist in stance. I think we need an activist law society leadership. That's for sure.
Yeah, I don't want you to mistake us that we are saying that what the judiciary is not doing, we hope the ULS will make it happen. We are just saying it's
always a resistance. Like, yes,
ought to do something.
Yes,
and I think you are going there. That so you have. There's been a chat where people should continue to study law, but you have a bunch of young people who are in law school and think they have capacity to do something. But like you said, if the judiciary is going to become irrelevant, it can no longer deliver justice. Someone has got to do something. Otherwise, we are just going to a profession.
In the same circle. Why are we even learning the law in the first place?
So the chat, if I were part of the chat, I would tell the chat members, and especially the lawyers in that chat members, it's for the lawyers to define a new climate. In 1986, even before that, young people took it upon themselves. They didn't ask permission of older people. The young people needed to come together and decide what they need to do for this country. Whether it's politics, whether it's at the level of legislature, what the young people that do not need to do is to be part of this decayed system. It pains me to see young people being among the councillors being bribed, young people in NRM primaries as chaotic as they are. Like, young people need to destroy the status quo and not to join it, because the status quo clearly has failed the country. And they need to open a new vistas for this country, and the rest of us who are old needs to be followers of these young brothers.
Why can't an old person lead this thing?
That's okay. That's okay. If the old people, okay, the old person has a young mentality, but what I'm saying that something new has to be done, more like with you who's calling yourself a protest merchant. Yes, so there is a need to protest against this filthy, rotting system, but it's important that we avoid being part of it. You cannot eat your cake and have it. If really young people are interested in a new Uganda, they must fight rather than join the old Uganda.
Are we talking revolution?
Yes. Nothing short of a revolution is called for in Uganda. We need the fundamental switch of thinking systems, because the status quo has failed itself, failed the present, and failed posterity.
There's an important question. There's not really important, but there's a question that keeps coming up when we have conversations on like revolution, resistance, the non-violent and the violent resistance.
But it's a very serious matter. Like, you can't go about it without discipline, without seriousness, without sacrifice. To change, to revolutionize a country is a serious ask. Are people ready for the ask? Are people, you can't revolutionize it in a bar when you're going to be spending an entire night in a bar, and in the morning you can't work. It is serious business. Even the dictators of today, the little they did for the country, and they have really betrayed us, they had to put in a lot of work. You find young people who cannot read a book even in a year until they want a different country.
But we are illiterate. How are we going to get the largest population is illiterate?
What I'm saying, the leaders, because every generation has leaders. Yes, the majority might be illiterate, but those who are leading the young people must be different from the people who are going to follow them. They must know that there is work to be put in. You are not going to do it flippantly. You are not going to do it in a knee-jerk reaction. People need to lose sleep. People need to go hungry, thinking about what to do for this country. It is serious business.
Eron,
yeah,
I don't think that understanding that you have is obvious to everyone. I think sometimes we have this thing of they ought to know, they ought to understand.
What
this.
ought?
I don't know how much do we have to do to let these young people know what's at stake for them.
Yeah, like,
so one of the things that came out of the two Kenyans that got out, and for me what I think was a miracle was, so for example, at Agora we had interviewed a lady and a young girl and a family whose father,
Sam
had been missing. We didn't know where they were. They were suspecting the father is at Kasenyi. We couldn't verify because the SFC was saying we don't have them until these guys have to go on TV and say there is a guy called Sam Subuga who is there. And they also talked about the brother to the Minister of International Affairs, Otafire, who I think he alluded to at that ULS event.
Amos.
So I think it's true that everyone is at risk and this can happen to everyone. I don't know.
So you see why I told you that the Kenyan abduction was addressing in this.
By the way, I don't even know why they let those people go.
Pressure.
I don't know.
Diplomatic
no,
pressure.
like I feel.
Yes,
was it worth it on their side?
I think diplomatically it's difficult for Uganda to say we are going to hold on to these guys at the expense.
Because also remember how they were arrested. It was clear they arrested
in broad
them.
Daylight.
Yes.
Yeah. But what I'm saying is it had to take those to, I think, tell us these things, that you have a brother of a minister in there. It means anyone potentially could be there. I don't know how much more work we have to do to tell these young people that this luxurious life we have, that we think, oh, I don't need to protest. Praise is just an outrage merchant. It's just an outrage merchant. We need to teach them. I don't know if we have to teach them or tell them that this is coming and this is coming for you. You need to care just as much. I know Eron says you ought to see this. You need to do something. But I'm thinking maybe we need also those who are already cautious need to take a step and make it clear to.
I agree with you. Civic awareness is very important, and those who know, like you, need to have more of these podcasts, more of these spaces.
But the problem is,
and measures to interact with other people and spread these ideas.
There is no space to have those actual conversations. You know, and you may be like, but you can, you see, for example, we're trying to do a thing in a university, you know, but you cannot mobilize. If you put on a poster, for example, Agatha is going to be there, Eron Kizza is going to be in Makerere, Mujemo Tule, it's going to ring bells. So most times what happens is there's a small circle of already informed people. Most times we're in your circle of influence, you get? I know Lowell, I know Eron, I know Agatha, so we are going to meet at Chimeza. So you see, it becomes now like an echo chamber of angry people hoping to teach these things to other people. You get? Now, the one which maybe we could say is, because I've done all these things, I've been there, I've tested it.
But if the digital products are not limited to the echo chamber, if you do like, I have, for example, you may not know, but I follow you and your friend Kosinjo on TikTok, your videos. I think everyone can watch that one in their couch.
And that for me is one of the biggest issues that I have faced as someone who does civic education. How do you get all those thousands of views, comments, hundreds of comments and likes, thousands of likes, to actual action, to an actual revolution? Because the kind of planning you're talking about feels more like you need to be in close personal contact.
Not necessarily. The work is big. First of all, you need not to be discouraged. You need a big number of that level. Organizing must be multifaceted. There are those you have to reach en masse, but still you also need the 27.
Yeah.
There are a group of people that you cannot. There are those who are going to reach you on TikTok, but they are the people who should even never know that you are talking to. Because if we ever know, you never know, we may tell the people that cause others problems, cause you problems. So people have to have
the inner circle.
There are people who have to be mobilized beyond the podcast, and there are people who should be mobilized on the podcast, and the messages and the intensity is different, but the ones that are off and the ones that are off, they will have a conjunction. The work you're doing offline becomes more effective if you have more people online who have already been prepared.
I agree. I was going to make a biblical allusion.
Go ahead.
Like
Laura may not like the Bible, but
he has no option. He doesn't read it, so he wouldn't even know. So enjoy this.
Okay.
Like when we look at Christ had the inner circle of the three, among the 12, he had the three. This was John, Peter, and some other guy. Now, see, I've forgotten my Bible.
Yeah.
Simon?
Yes, was it Simon?
James?
Who was James? Yes. Then outside, at least did you know? Did you know?
Uh-huh.
Outside that, we now have the 12 disciples we learn about, which also include these three. You get? But then from that, we have the ones we'll have to call the 5,000. Those who came when everything was already solved. They just came to eat the bread and the fish and go back to their homes. But there were men who were with him, like at that point of weakness, of planning, of everything, were these three. And then so I get it. I get it. But now, back to my question that I feel we jumped over, the conversation we jumped over. Do you think when it comes to like fighting the rot, the injustice in this country, we can have it all the way non-violent?
No, I don't know. You see, as Nelson Mandela wrote so sad thing today, at a certain level, the tools of engagement are determined not by the freedom fighters, but by the dictator, the oppressor. Before Umukutu Wesuzwe, Spear of the Nation, started to engage the apartheid dictatorship violently, they had labored for years, for decades, to engage in non-violent resistance. It came a time, and they disabused themselves of the notion that they are going to take on the apartheid state pure and non-violent means. Hence the engagement of the likes of Nyerere, the frontline states, and so on and so forth. So they had a political wing and a military wing. But key thing is that they tried non-violent means until they proved completely failed. And the importance of those non-violent means as first being given a chance is that the frustration that comes from failing creates a fertile ground even for the violent means of struggle. But non-violent means in this day and era have a higher chance of success than before, because what you're talking about is 1 week maximum to remove a government if people decide to remove it non-violently. They just need to swamp enough airports, enough capital. And for
places
Uganda,
of power.
in fact, for Uganda, we don't need more than Kampala.
Just Kampala, isn't it?
Yeah, Kampala has the judiciary, the what, and maybe, but really once you have Kampala, you have the state in your hands, then we announce a new government, then we agree that Terawero cannot handle ministerial position, but
remain a foot soldier.
He was not on the back of front.
So the challenge, of course, has been with those is that some people who are more organized, organizing is very important. If you're not organized, even if you create a revolution, it will be sabotaged by the military or by fundamentalists like Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt, which was also later overthrown by the military. So organization is not a substitute for the spontaneity of modern era springs and revolutions.
Yeah. So people can have power over the guns.
Yeah, people can have power, enough critical mass, depending on how many people they are. Yes, they can have power over the guns.
Yes.
How do we do that without with a headless revolution, which the praises seem to have to be?
Why are you mentioning my name?
Most of you.
The leaderless. Oh, yeah.
Leaderless.
Leaderless.
It can start leaderless, but it cannot remain leaderless.
No, I think when I usually tell people, when we say a leaderless movement, it doesn't mean the opposite is leaderful. Like, it's not the direct opposite of what our traditional resistances or revolutions have looked like. Leaderless in itself is more of, it's the spirit with which we say this thing, that we don't want another Museveni, we don't want another at
organizational level. If you're organizing people, what does it look like?
I'm coming there. Okay,
this is my question. If I know that Eron Kizza is the one who is spearheading us, we know that what he says we do this, we go with what Eron says. We trust that he has a clear vision.
Yes.
The opposite of that is, so we don't want the Erons who are going to be the faces of it.
Now that is a mistake. Okay. Because what leaders looks like is when you come to function and structure, people go serve in dockets where their strength lie the most, but they do not assume absolute uncheckered power because, for example, they are the first. Eron may turn out to be the first because when he speaks, he sounds the best. People listen to him or they are more drawn to him. But what he speaks or what he pushes for should be certain things that have been agreed on issues, you understand? And it's not just by virtue that because Eron has been the face of this, when we win this struggle, Eron will be the president of it or something like that, you get. Power always goes back to the people to make the choice, to choose who they want, what they want and stuff like that.
Is it the president of Guinea who said after trampling the government, said he was not going to participate in
something of that sort.
After that, he's running.
Again.
He's now subjecting himself to...
Well, that's a man who went against his own principles.
Eron, my final question on this, I think our time is fast spent, is the dictators of East Africa seem to have come together to unite to oppress the people.
Tripartite.
Yes, and at some point the young people are also trying to have more correspondence, more communication. What do you think? What do you think this is going? And do you think it's something that, as the citizens ourselves, need to push harder to have more synergies across the region?
No brainer. That's it. There is a trinity of evil: the Museveni, Suruha, and Ruto.
The evil trinity.
The dictators in cahoots, the opponents of the dictators, the activists, the democracy seekers must also work together. And for them, they need even to exceed where the dictators are, because the oppressed should double their efforts because they're in a disadvantaged position. They're on the fringe. These people are in the center. You want to repress them. You want to come where they are. To remove them is not easy, and they are working together. So people who are oppressed, they need to work together.
Yes, our leader.
Wow, this has been a really, beautiful conversation, but also that kind of conversation that makes you think, re-strategize, especially for someone like me who has always been a protest merchant. So I'm thinking mobilizing education and stuff like that. Eron, thank you so much for honoring our invite. The pleasure is ours. And I know it was yours too, because we are quite an interesting duo. Lowell,
I'm looking forward to the dinner after here.
Lord.
The cocktail.
No problem on your bill. You're the lawyer here, the prestigious lawyer. And Lowell, my co-host, it has been amazing getting into your brain and hearing you, shape this conversation through your questions.
It's a pleasure.
Exactly.
We are looking forward to putting Jesus in your brain.
We shall go back to that conversation post that shoot. But our viewers, thank you so much for taking your time to listen to this particular conversation. If you have any opinions, if you have any additions, if you have any questions, feel free to leave them in our comment section. If you've loved this video and you feel what we're discussing was important and someone else must hear it, like this video so you can boost its views. Share it in your circles of influence. Share it on your statuses, share it on TikTok and whatever platform that you use, because that way more people can be able to have it. We want to thank our host Peloton Studios for giving us this amazing space where we can have such important discussions from. Other than that, see you next time on What Ought.
Bye-bye.